Bill Gates, who has openly came out on camera and he did a TED talk talking about the goal is depopulation. He supports veganism. He bought into vegan companies. He pushes veganism. That is very concerning. He is the guy that goes to Africa and shoots Africans up with depopulation vaccines. We should be concerned if someone like this is promoting veganism and pushing veganism and buying into vegan companies. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Megan Remedy, holistic nutritionist, and today's video is part 2 of my ex-vegan story. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe and make sure to comment. I'm getting a lot of comments on my Instagram. I'm getting a lot of personal messages, but I would appreciate if you guys can bring the conversation over here to my YouTube channel. So I needed to do a part 2. I don't think I did a very good job in part 1 of explaining how much pain, Simba, no. Of explaining how much pain I was in, explaining the symptoms that I went through, and how long of a process it was for me to actually trial and error with a bunch of different nutrients and supplements and foods and different vegan diets and all of that to finally come to the conclusion that it wasn't working for me. I needed to try all of those things. I needed to try everything possible before I quit so that I knew in my heart that it wasn't possible for me. That was really important. So I'm getting a lot of comments on my Instagram or direct messages on my Instagram about me quitting veganism. So a lot of vegans are asking me, oh, did you supplement with B12? Did you supplement with vitamin D? Did you this? Did you that? Blah, blah, blah. Like, that isn't the issue. I'm a nutritionist. I know what the body needs. I know the nutrients the body needs. I know how the body works. I know how the body digests things. By no means am I some, crazy expert because I'm just starting out in the industry, but I have been into health and been researching health for about 4 years now, and the number one thing that I pay attention to for my clients and for myself is how people are responding to the diet, how people are responding to the herbs, how people are responding to the supplements, because not everything works for everybody. A supplement could be good for you by nature, nothing wrong with the supplement, but some people's bodies just don't agree with supplements or don't agree with that specific supplement. It's a very complicated topic. Everybody's bioavailability is different to the foods that they're eating based on their digestion, their past history, their toxic load, a bunch of different factors, and also based on what that person has grown up on, their stomach bacteria, their genetics as well. So I supplemented with everything. I tried everything. I had so much supplements. I spent thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars a month or more just on supplements, not to mention the food. I was spending hundreds on food. I literally spent way too much money on this trying to make it work. So yeah, I was supplementing with B12. I was supplementing with vitamin D. I was taking a vegan multivitamin. I was taking vegan vegan omega-3. I was taking vegan algae for the DHA and all of that. Anything that I could supplement with, I did. Some other guy commented that if I'm finding relief from eggs, that it's the MSM. I supplemented with MSM. I supplemented with it for a long time actually, and yes, it did help, but it wasn't the root cause. It wasn't the only thing that was going on, and it's not the only nutrient that is in eggs that my body was craving or thriving off of. He also commented that maybe I picked up a parasite from someplace and blah blah blah. I did a parasite cleanse. Like, when I tell you I tried everything, I tried everything. And yes, I did have a reaction. I did have some parasites. But they were cleansed away. They were eliminated. And then I had tried a parasite cleanse a couple months later, and I didn't have a reaction to it because most of the parasites were gone. I mean, everybody has parasites, but the troublesome ones were gone after that parasite cleanse. My health actually got worse after I did the parasite cleanse. And it's not because of the parasite cleanse, but it's because of the fact that my deterioration in my body was getting worse and worse and worse, because at this time I was still on a vegan diet. So yeah, I tried everything. None of it worked. That wasn't the issue. Towards the end of veganism for me, I had tried everything. I had a huge cupboard full of supplements, like 3 shelves deep of supplements upon supplements. I was taking so many pills in the morning, like I had to split everything up because I just couldn't swallow that many pills. I tried everything. I tried, different combinations of supplements because this one was going to interact with this one and blah, 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 like everything. So it really kind of irritates me when vegans just jump to, oh, you weren't doing it properly, you didn't supplement with this, you didn't do that, blah, blah, blah. I did, okay? From day one, I supplemented with B12 because I did my research on it. And then as I started feeling crappier and crappier, I started adding in other supplements like vitamin D and this and that, and in a hopes that that was the issue and that I could just simply take a supplement and still eat a bunch of plants and I'd feel better. But that wasn't the case. My blood work was extremely low in vitamin D, iron. My blood pressure was always low. I remember when I went to the hospital, my blood pressure was extremely low, that they were actually concerned for my health because my blood pressure was so low. And I had craved salt so much, and I know that they tell you, salt affects your blood pressure. I was eating so much salt and my blood pressure was still low. So that wasn't the issue either. So I was eating according to Dr. Greger's standards, and I had tried Starch Solution, and I had tried 80-10-10 and Raw Till 4, and literally every version of the diet I had tried. And towards the end, that was towards the beginning, towards the end, I was trying Dr. Greger's version of the diet because he's, the leading plant-based doctor and does all these studies and looks into every single topic and gives us the information so that we don't have to. And I was deteriorating. Like, even though I was eating beans and rice and his daily dozen, making sure that I incorporated everything, I still felt like shit. I had no energy whatsoever. I couldn't perform in the gym anymore. I was sleeping all day. After a meal, I would dread having to eat this meal. I knew that I needed calories. I knew that I needed to eat. I had lost my appetite because eating this food was such a chore for me, and such a chore for my stomach, and such a chore for my digestion because of the amount of fiber and anti-nutrients. So I, was eating a meal just like Dr. Greger had suggested, and after the meal, I would be starving. Even though I was full, I was starving. It wasn't satiating enough for me. It wasn't doing the trick anymore. And that's when I really started to pay attention to the fact that something is going on here. This isn't agreeing with my body. I'm not satiated. After a meal, I was literally ravenous for just anything, like any sugar that I could get. because my blood sugar wasn't being stabilized. It was all over the place. I couldn't eat fruit anymore. I couldn't have fruit juices anymore. Smoothies especially. If I have a if I have a juice that is heavy vegetables, I'm okay. But if I have a fruit juice, or if I have a smoothie that has a lot of fruit in it, my blood sugar will spike like crazy. I will get very dizzy. No, Simba. I will get very dizzy, and I will literally have to go sleep probably a half an hour to an hour later because my blood sugar crashed and I'm exhausted so much. I also, one of the things that I see a lot of the ex-vegans talk about is how they felt so up in the clouds and so ungrounded, and I really, that's how I felt. And at the time you think, you're getting more spiritual and this and that, but the more that it started to happen, the more that I realized it was because I was losing the cognition in my brain. It had nothing to do with being more spiritual. And I literally felt like I was kind of outside of my body and almost living in the clouds. And that first egg brought me back down. That first egg was like I was living up here. I was living above my body in a different dimension, almost like I wasn't fully there, like kind of like an experience of someone if they're in a coma, but it wasn't that much. And the first egg, I literally felt like my spirit just like go back into my body and get grounded and calm. And I will never forget that experience. And unless you have been vegan long term, and I mean strict vegan, I never ever ate any animal products at all. I had one incident where there was like a little bit of chicken and rice that I had got from a shawarma place, but I spit that out and I didn't swallow it. And then I had one other incident, and this was towards the end, where I accidentally had dairy ice cream instead of soy ice cream because the place had both options, but it was literally one scoop, and that was it. So I was strict vegan for 4 years. No animal products, no animal fat, nothing. I read every single label. I looked into everything to make sure that I wasn't consuming animal products. So until you have that experience of abstaining from animal products, and I think especially fat, for so long, and you reincorporate it and you notice the difference immediately, until you have that experience, you can't speak on it. You can't tell anyone else that that's not their experience and that that's not what's happening. Like these vegans who are long-term vegans and they aren't having problems, great. That's not who I'm talking to. That's not who this video is for. You keep doing you until you have problems and you need to look into it again. Just keep doing you. That's not who this video is for. This video is for vegans who are having problems. This video is for vegans who are interested in other people's problems, just to solidify that this is actually what they're going through, because other vegans will try and make you think that you did it wrong, or you're crazy, or you just need to supplement with this, or you just need to do a parasite cleanse. No, your body needs certain building blocks. Your body needs certain nutrients. Plants and herbs and all of that stuff are great for cleansing, great for improving your health, but it's not the basis of your diet. It's not what your body needs to not degenerate. Your body needs animal products to not degenerate. I do think that there's like a small population that can do great on a plant-based diet, but for most people, that's not the case. For most people, they're going to have detrimental, degenerative issues long term. So I just wanted to get that off my chest, that if you've never went through this experience, don't think that you know what it's all about, how it feels, how I felt, and just save the comments about, oh, you didn't do it right, because I'm a nutritionist. So if anybody could do it right, it would be a nutritionist or a naturopath or a doctor. And there's several of those professions that have went vegan and have had problems. So please understand that your biochemical DNA is different from person to person. Just because veganism works for you does not mean that it works for someone else. It does not mean that that's someone else's experience. And you need, and this is speaking to vegans, you need to have compassion for a fellow human being who has tried, who gave veganism 110% for 4 years and did damage on their body because they were holding on to it for so long. You need to have compassion for that person who is figuring it out, figuring their health out, who doesn't want to suffer anymore, who just wants to feel good again, and is also still keeping animals and the planet in mind and making the best decisions. With that being said, I wanted to talk a little bit about the effect on the environment that veganism has, and a little bit of behind the scenes of what is going on that I don't think a lot of vegans are paying attention to. So one thing that really struck my attention and creeped me out, honestly, was the fact that Bill Gates, who has openly came out on camera and he did a TED Talk talking about the goal is depopulation. He supports veganism. He bought into vegan companies. He pushes veganism. That is very concerning. He is the guy that goes to Africa and shoots Africans up with depopulation vaccines. We should be concerned if someone like this is promoting veganism and pushing veganism and buying into vegan companies. So that's one of my biggest concerns. The other point that I wanted to bring up is that in order for you to get nutrition out of plants, because you need to break down the fiber to get to the nutrients. So the nutrients are a little bit harder to get and less bioavailable. The soil, if you understand agriculture, the soil needs to be very nutrient dense. It needs to have a lot of minerals. It needs to have had a good compost component, all of that. So the soil needs to be healthy in order for the plants to be healthy. So a plant can look like a plant with synthetic fertilizer, but it doesn't mean that the nutrients are present. So this being said, monocropping, big, monocrops, that is what is needed for veganism to be a global thing, for it to succeed, to feed that many people, where we would have to do monocropping. The soil isn't going to be nutrient dense. So therefore you are not optimizing your digestion. Your digestion is working so hard to break down this fiber to get to the nutrients. Once it breaks it down, it realizes there's not a lot of nutrients. There's not as many nutrients as there's supposed to be. There's not as many nutrients 20 years ago in the soil as there is now. That means that the plants that are being grown in that soil are going to be deficient. So that is a big factor. And one of the reasons why I feel like I felt so crappy is because the produce that I have access to, or that normal people have access to in the grocery stores, is really void of nutrients. It looks like an apple. It looks like broccoli. It looks like spinach. But the nutrient content is not there because of monocropping, because they just don't care. Even in organic farming, there are certain regulations for pesticides and stuff like that, but the soil is still void of a lot of nutrients, especially compared to food 20, 40, 100 years ago. So with that being said, in order for the soil to be nutritious, we need compost. We need animal agriculture. So naturally, the animals, like ruminant animals, they will graze on the grass, on the shrubs, all of that. They digest it, they excrete it, and then the nutrients go back into the soil. It's a cycle of life. So with that being said, in order for the soil to be healthy, we need animals. We need them grazing. We need them taking care of the land in that way for the soil to be healthy. So farming that makes more sense is farming that includes animals, farming that rotates animals and rotates the land. So once the soil is replenished from the animals, then you plant vegetables on it and you move the animals to a different location. They replenish, they, eat the grass on that land, they replenish it. You now move the vegetables to that piece of land and you move them back to replenish the land that has been stripped from the vegetables, and so on. And the cycle keeps going. That farming method makes so much more sense than monocropping huge vegan crops like wheat and soy and everything that is being pushed by vegans. So a lot of vegans will promote, the McDonald's vegan burger or eating vegan at McDonald's. McDonald's is not buying, the wheat that they use for that bun or the iceberg lettuce that they use for that sandwich. They're not buying that from a local farmer. They are monocropping it. So there is no nutrition in that food, and it's not organic, so it's toxic. So who the heck cares if it's vegan food, if it's still toxic, if it's still horrible? Like, I would not trust McDonald's if they came out and said they're fully vegan and organic. Like, McDonald's is one of the biggest corporations that you should not be supporting, whether they're vegan or not, for many reasons. But the issue has gotten so far away from health for the environment and health for people, and it's just transformed into this weird, dogmatic, pretentious, ignoring the real facts and ignoring nature movement that I don't want to be a part of. Even if I, went back to eating plant-based one day, I don't want anything to do with the label of veganism, especially how vegans have treated me after coming out and saying that I'm no longer vegan. The amount of hate and disgusting comments and messages, and a lot of them have private messaged me because they don't, I guess, want to be seen talking like that openly. But the amount of hate is actually disgusting from people who claim that they are compassionate and they care about the planet and animals and yada yada yada. They care about everyone else but humans. If a human is telling you that they are suffering and they're clearly sane and they clearly have reasonable opinions and topics and points, then as another reasonable human being, you should, at the least, at the minimum, just let them live and not attack them with ridiculous comments that don't even make sense. Should I die because you don't want me to eat some pasture eggs from a local small farm, but instead it's more beneficial for the environment to eat a vegan McDonald's burger? That logic is so far from making sense that I don't even understand how they believe it themselves. I really don't. The second, when I was vegan, somebody had brought that argument to me about natural animal agriculture, about the land and what the land needs for nutrition, and if it wasn't for animals and animal agriculture, then we wouldn't have nutritious plants, etc., etc. Somebody brought that argument to me when I was vegan, and I stopped and was like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. And I started looking at it as more of a whole instead of just a dogmatic one-way thinking. And I'm just thankful that I'm open-minded and thankful that I can take other things into consideration, because I think that's missing with a lot of vegans, is that they refuse to look at the other points or the other side of it. And you don't need to agree with someone to consider their opinions. You don't need to, become a carnivore to consider non-vegans' opinions. You just need to look at the facts and the opinions with an open mind. That's it, without attacking people, because it doesn't stand for what you stand for. So the other thing that really grinds my gears is vegans saying that dogs can be vegan and thrive on a vegan diet and yada yada yada. Maybe tiny little dogs that have been bred down and domesticated over the years, they might be okay eating like that. But I know that I have a little Pomeranian, and when he was a baby, he was on raw meat, and then I switched him to a vegan diet. When I seen all this stuff, the V-dog kibble and dogs can be vegan and blah, 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 switched him to a vegan diet. I did vegan dry food, and I would cook him a homemade vegan meal. And the difference that I seen in his digestion from when he was on the raw meat, he would barely have poop. His stomach would be, pretty flat, and it seemed like he was absorbing the nutrients because of the way his stools looked. When he was vegan, his poop was huge, so I realized like he's not really absorbing as much, and that is partly because of the fiber. But the homemade food, so with the dry food I couldn't really tell because it's already ground up. It just looks the same going in and coming out. So with the cooked meal, I noticed, there would be like peas or corn or quinoa, or just like I switched it up all the time. But whatever food was in it, carrots, everything, it would come out the other end looking the same. He wasn't digesting it. He wasn't assimilating it. It wasn't working for him. And so I had stopped cooking the homemade meals because it wasn't working. I was giving him dry food, and I was giving him like fresh carrot or cucumber, fresh veggies. He still loves chewing on fresh veggies, but I noticed that his health was deteriorating. He has a lot of fur. Pomeranians obviously have a lot of fur, and one of the biggest signs that dogs' health is deteriorating is when their fur falls out. So Pomeranians have two coats. They have a small, shorter, fluffy coat, and then they have a longer, straighter, thinner coat. So the undercoat was coming out in huge chunks, like huge chunks. And then his overcoat, the longer coat, was just shedding like nonstop crazy. Like I had to buy bulk lint rollers because he would shed nonstop everywhere, and it wasn't healthy. They are dogs that shed, but he was over shedding. It wasn't supposed to be like that. For his fur, like shedding is like some pieces coming out, but his fur, his undercoat was literally coming out in giant chunks, to the point where like I would see a giant chunk of fur on him and just, pull it, and it would just easily like just come right off all over his body. And I knew that the vegan diet wasn't working for him either. And so the question comes into mind, is it animal abuse to feed my dog a vegan diet because he's suffering? He clearly is suffering if his hair is falling out. He can't communicate to me, oh, Mom, I'm in pain, I don't feel good, my digestion's not working, I'm craving this, I'm craving raw meat. He can't communicate that with me. So I paid attention to his bodily signs, and they were telling me that he wasn't doing good on it at all. the first time that I gave him an egg, he just ate the yolk and he left the whites. And anytime I eat eggs, he begs me and begs me and begs me to eat eggs. So I think it's more ethical to pay attention to my animal's needs, his cravings, his natural instincts, and what his body is telling me. I think it's a lot more ethical to feed him animal products because he is an obligate carnivore than to torture him, essentially, make him suffer, make his body degrade in the name of veganism. For me, I think that is animal abuse. And I know that whole topic, like some vegans don't feed their animals vegan and some do. But I do not think it's a good idea just from my experience with him. He is a lot healthier. He doesn't shed as much now that I have incorporated animal products into his diet. And when I do give him the vegan food, he has digestion problems again. So it's exactly what I'm going through. Similar thing. I can't really tolerate a lot of fiber right now. I can't really tolerate any wheat, any plant-based oils, any plant-based junk food. None of that. I will still eat vegetables, but I need to combine them with fat and protein in order to not have digestive issues. I can't just eat a salad. The salad would have to have, a raw egg dressing or some fish or something on it for my body to not completely reject it. I have tried going back to eating vegan for a few days and my pain rages back, my symptoms come back, I get achy. It's just not working for me. I have tried several times to have a few vegan days here and there and see how I feel, and it's night and day. Like, I absolutely feel like shit when I go a few days just eating vegan food. All the symptoms come raging back, and I think that's one because I haven't healed enough yet from veganism. I need to do a lot of healing. I need to do a lot of raw animal foods in order to heal fast because I noticed that my body responds better to the raw animal foods than the cooked animal foods. That has a lot to do with enzymes, the heat destroying nutrients, etc., etc. So I'm not at the point of healing yet. I'm like right at that middle ground of if I have a couple days vegan, my symptoms come right back. So I am going to document recipes and foods that I'm making to heal from veganism. I know that there's probably a lot of people out there that are grossed out by meat, or grossed out by all animal products, but they know that they need to try and make the switch because they feel like shit. So I'm going to share a few of my recipes and the things that I'm eating to help you incorporate these foods so that they won't be as gross. Like, personally, I can't just crack an egg open and just swallow it because the texture absolutely grosses me out. I have to scramble it, I have to chug it back, I have to drink some water to get it back, because I'm just not there yet. I'm not, it's not appetizing to me, but my body feels so much better eating it that I know I have to do it. So I've just found ways and tricks to get the raw animal foods in without being as grossed out. So I hope you guys will tune into those videos that are coming in the future. I wanted to mention that it is very possible to detox without starving yourself. In the vegan community, there's this big message of, you need to fast and you need to starve yourself and this and that to heal yourself. there's a place for fasting, but the majority of people don't need to fast, and the majority of people do it very dangerously. But it is possible to be consuming building foods, like animal foods, to be consuming eggs raw, fish raw, and also detoxing at the same time. Fat chelates heavy metals, fat chelates toxins. So eating raw fat is really going to help your body pull these toxins out and detox as well. You can also eat building foods, and then also be consuming herbs and teas and things like that to detox that way. So you're still giving your body the building nutrients that it needs, the building blocks, but you're also incorporating some detoxing herbs to help the body, help the liver, help the organs, whatever your goal is. So you don't need to starve yourself to detox. I had clients messaging me like, I don't feel good on this vegan diet anymore. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, this and that. My best friend and her boyfriend were telling me the exact same thing, that they weren't feeling good anymore. They were having a lot of health problems. And I had worked with these people, and we had tried everything. They had supplemented with everything too. I told them things to do and this and that, and get their blood work done. And the same thing that they were going through was the same thing that I was going through. Like, it wasn't working. It would, supplementing with B12 or supplementing with this and that, it would temporarily give them a little boost of energy. But the body had seemed to reject the supplements, or it not synthesize with them, or there wasn't the cofactors present in these vitamins and minerals to be synthesized properly. When you eat whole foods, this allows all of the cofactors and the saturated fat that is needed to digest fat-soluble vitamins and synthesize them. It's all present because the food is whole. It's a whole food. And that's the point of eating a whole food diet. So this is not just my experience. Clients have also experienced this. Friends and family have experienced this. So there's an overwhelming group of people who do not do well on a vegan diet, and we are not going to be silenced. We are going to talk about it. We are going to talk about the flaws in veganism. We are going to talk about the issues with veganism. We are going to warn people of the dangers of veganism so that young people don't do the damage that I did to my body. Essentially, that's why I'm making this video. I did a lot of damage to my body by doing veganism for too long. I think that it's just a detox diet, and it should not be done for 4+ years like I did it. I think it's very detrimental to your health. I experienced like extreme degenerative symptoms. And I just hope you guys will stay tuned for my journey on healing from veganism. And I love how vegans always constantly want to throw studies at you and tell you, where are your studies, this and that, blah, 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 blah. I don't need a freaking study because I am the study. Like, I experimented on myself. Veganism is an experiment right now. We don't know how large populations do on a strictly 100% plant-based diet, because it hasn't happened before. The plant-based populations, they, were like 90% plant-based, 80% plant. Nobody was 100% plant-based. It was actually the opposite. Indigenous cultures really understood the benefit of raw animal foods, and that is what gave indigenous cultures their strength and their stamina and their ability to be healthy without modern influence, without modern doctors or dentists or anything like that, because of their diet. Their health and vitality was because of their raw animal food diet. if anybody knows about Weston A. Price, it wasn't until indigenous people started eating a Western diet that they started having health problems, cavities, and various different diseases. So my point is that we can't deny this biological need. So my point is that I was the study. I experimented on myself. I don't need my own life experience, my own vegan experiment on myself to be published in PubMed for it to be legitimate or for it to be the truth. I know that this is what I experienced. I know that this is what I went through. I know how I feel when I eat certain foods and when I don't eat certain foods. And that's all that I need to know. So I could keep rambling on and on about this. About the struggles I had with veganism and why I think veganism is being pushed. I think that it really is to push people out of the rural areas, out of farms, out of homesteading, and to push them into the cities so that we ultimately can't control our own food, grow our own food, and make sure that it is of a pure, nutritious quality. So with that being said, I'm going to close out the video today. Make sure that you guys comment your vegan or non-vegan experience below. Make sure to subscribe if you're new, and make sure to hit that like button